Distinguished members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, in continuation of the press briefings for the July 2021 Mpc meetings, I'd like to provide some updates and policy decisions regarding the operations of some aspects of our foreign exchange market in Nigeria. As we all know by now, Nigeria has been dealing with the effects of three significant and simultaneous global shocks which began around the first quarter of the year. First, there was the onset of COVID-19 pandemic which claimed millions of lives, destroyed billions of livelihoods, and continues to have a devastating effect on current global economic activities. Second, given the sharp deceleration and complete stoppage in global economic activities at some point, we also witnessed a protracted and steep decline in the price of crude oil, which contributed to the largest share of our foreign exchange reserves. Indeed, as of 20th April 2020, the price of crude oil fell below $0 per barrel as producers were forced to pay buyers for overwhelmed storage facilities. Third, given that no one knew the depth or duration of the pandemic, many foreign investors withdrew massive amounts of funds from the emerging market economies, including Nigeria, and reinvested them into safe haven assets like the US Treasuries. The Institute of International Finance estimated that investors withdrew over $100 billion in emerging market portfolio equity and roughly $20 billion in emerging market portfolio bonds in the wave of the pandemic. Nigeria suffered its share of these withdrawals during that time, although we are beginning to see some of these investors return back to Nigeria. In the aftermath of these shocks, we saw daily turnover in our foreign exchange market fall from almost $300 million per day in the first quarter of 2020 to about $40 million per day at the height of the pandemic. In light of various efforts and initiatives by the CBN, we have seen this number rise to as high as $150 million per day in July 2020. Despite the aforementioned FX supply pressures, the demand for foreign exchange has not abated, thereby putting additional pressure on our reserves. To avoid further depletion of the reserves, the CBN took several countervailing actions, including prioritization for imports of critical raw materials and providing ample supply for businesses and personal travelers. While these have been turbulent times, we are happy to note that these measures have been positively decisive in helping us maintain a healthy level of reserves despite these exogenous difficulties. In total disregard of the difficulties that the bank is facing in meeting its mandate of maintaining the country's foreign exchange reserves to safeguard the value of the naira, we have continued to observe that stakeholders in some of the subsectors have not been helpful in this direction. In particular, we have noted with disappointment and grave concern that our bureau de change operators have abandoned the original objective of their establishment, which was to serve retail end users who need $5,000 or less. Instead, they have become wholesale dealers and illegally in foreign exchange to the tune of millions of dollars per transaction. Despite the fact that Nigeria is the only country in the world today where a central bank sells dollar directly to bureau de change operators. Operators in the Nigeria's bureau de change segment have not reciprocated the bank gesture to help maintain price stability in that market. Whereas the bank has an understanding with bureau de change operators that they make a small margin from sale of the US dollar allocated to them per week, they have reneged and become somewhat greedy, recalcitrant, with abnormally high profits from these sales, while ordinary Nigerians have been left to feel the pain and therefore suffer. Given this rent-seeking behavior, it is not surprising that since the CBN began to sell foreign exchange to borrow the change, the number of operators has risen from a mere 74 in 2005 to over 2,700 in 2016 and almost 5,500 BDCs as at today. In addition, the Central Bank of Nigeria constantly receives nothing less than 500 new applications for BDC licenses every month. And we therefore begin to wonder what is in this business that everybody must be in it. Rather than help to achieve the laudable objectives for which they were licensed, the bank has noted the following unintended and unfortunate outcomes. 1. Avalanche of rent-seeking operators operators only interested in widening margins and profits from the foreign exchange market, regardless of prevailing rates in the market. 2. Gradual dollarization of the Nigerian economy with attendant adverse consequences on the conduct of monetary policy and subtle subversion of the cashless policy initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria. 3. Prevailing ownership of several bureau de change by the same promoters in order to illegally procure foreign exchange multiple times from the central bank. 4. Numerous authorized transactions with foreign exchange procured from the Central Bank of Nigeria. 5. Indeed, we have evidence that several international organizations, embassies, regrettably, and development finance institutions, I repeat, regrettably, operating in the country, patronize BDCs through illegal forex dealers to fund their local operations in further and flagrant contravention of our foreign exchange laws and regulations in Nigeria. Our examiners are currently looking at the books. We have reports that indict development finance institutions, embassies, international finance organizations who, instead of selling their foreign exchange into the recognized investors and exporters window, have resorted into operating with illegal forex dealers in flagrant contravention of our laws. And we will deal ruthlessly with the Nigerian banks who have acted as collaborators with these illegal forex dealers. We will deal with them ruthlessly because they have allowed their banking and payment system infrastructure to be used to facilitate this illegal dealing in foreign exchange. As for those foreign organizations involved, we will report them to their regulators. We will write to those organizations seeking their understanding and that they must desist. If they seek to operate in Nigeria, they must go through the right channels through which they must procure either foreign exchange or procure naira for their domestic operations. For avoidance of doubt, such transactions should have been done at the transparent investors and exporters window. These unintended outcomes have placed an unsustainable and enormous financial burden on the CBN and our limited foreign exchange. The CBN sells $20,000 to over 5,500 BDCs per week. This amount translates to about $110 million per week and about $5.72 billion per year. This is a scarce resource, and Nigeria's central bank, the Nigerian government, cannot continue to allow this unwholesome practice to continue in Nigeria. This is a huge hemorrhage on our scarce foreign exchange reserves and cannot continue, especially because we are also concerned that bureau de change have become a conduit for illicit financial flows. Indeed, the facts abound that BDCs have turned themselves into agents that facilitate graft and corrupt activities of people who seek to conduct illicit funds flow and money laundering in Nigeria, and we will go after all of them. Throughout this meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee, we extensively debated these matters and independently with each member of the committee exhibiting accurate and deep understanding of the issues at stake. After these exhaustive and comprehensive deliberations, the management of the central bank will, with the full support of the committee, reach the following decisions which will take immediate effect. A. First, the central bank will henceforth discontinue the sale of foreign exchange to bureau de change operators. B. The bank will no longer process or issue new licenses for BDC operations in the country. This stoppage extends to all licenses being currently processed regardless of the stage of that processing. C. The bank would henceforth channel a significant portion of weekly allocations currently meant for BDCs to commercial banks to meet legitimate FX demand for ordinary Nigerians and businesses, whether for small-scale imports, medical bills, educational expenditure, personal and business travels, or any other legitimate needs as prescribed by the CBN's foreign exchange manual. D. All commercial banks in the country will, with immediate effect, create a dedicated teller point in designated branches for sale and disbursement of foreign exchange to customers who desire FX for legitimate purposes. For emphasis, the public should note that once a customer provides the basic documentation to purchase foreign exchange, all banks must immediately, either on demand or within a stipulated time frame, sell foreign exchange to the customer. Any customer who does not receive foreign exchange along these lines must report this to their bank, and where they are unsatisfied with the resolution, they are required, indeed they must, contact the CBN on our toll-free line number 070-02255-226. I repeat, 070-02255-226, or email cpd@cbn.gov.ng. Repeat, email cpd@cbn.gov.ng to lodge a complaint with details of the bank's transaction. In closing, let me note, very importantly, that these measures are not intended to be punitive on anyone or any group. Rather, it is meant to ensure that the CBN is better able to carry out its mandate in an effective and efficient manner, which guarantees preservation of our scarce commonwealth and that our hard-earned financial system stability remains intact to and for the benefit of Nigeria and all Nigerians. First, it's important for us to know that the central bank, in line with the Central Bank Act, has a mandate. One of its mandates, other than just price and monetary stability, is to see to ensuring that we maintain the reserve of the country as well as the exchange rate of the country. So it is a primary role ascribed to us by law that we should do what we need to do. And you will all recall that Nigeria remains one and the only. There were countries who were selling, whose central banks were selling foreign exchange to the bureau d'exchange operators. At some point, they dropped the idea. We have, as a result of requests and pressures, continued to do this. And we've done this to see to it that that those who operate in this market, that they are able to do so because we seek an opportunity to create business for them. And we believe that as long as they do this, not only for their benefit, but for the benefit of the economy, that we should continue to support this initiative. Like I read in my remarks, we have become very disappointed, concerned about the activities of our bureau d'exchange operators in Nigeria. We are unhappy about it because they have turned themselves out and being supportive in line with the objective, which is for them to sell dollars to people who immediately need to travel, about $5,000 or less. They have turned themselves into agents that facilitate graft and corruption in Nigeria, and we believe that this cannot be tolerated. The CBN has also been awash with complaints about the modus operandi of operators, and it's becoming so disgraceful that we feel that at this stage we need to take a decision. The Monetary Policy Committee did deliberate extensively on this. Not at just this meeting. This is an issue that even our leaders, even the political authorities, have engaged the central bank on. And we've tried our best to see to how we can defend the bureau d'exchange operators. And put bluntly, even our leaders who constitute the political authorities have raised concerns about the modus operandi of bureau d'exchange operators in Nigeria. We did our best to defend it, to say that they play certain roles in the economy. At this stage, we can no longer continue. So if you ask me the question, are we carrying the political authorities along? I will say the political authorities themselves have long sought that this should stop. But now that we have reached a point where we can no longer continue because of the illegal activities about graft, particularly, and corrupt tendencies being perpetrated by players in the bureau d'exchange sector, we believe this must stop, and we would stop henceforth. We know that there are people who, some people who, I use the word legitimately, under certain pressures would like to go to bureau d'exchange to buy dollars and travel or pay medical bills and stuff. We are saying that those dollars we use to sell to bureau d'exchange operators, you don't have to go there again. Go to your bank, provide them with the minimal documentation, they will attend to you. Indeed, they will transfer your money electronically. They don't have to give cash. In line with our policy of cashless, we cannot be talking about cashless in Naira and be supporting cashless in dollars. An attempt that is meant to just dollarize our economy, we cannot continue. So when you talk about the pressure on exchange rate, Nancy, I don't see it, because if the people who used to, I use the word legally, if you know you are sure conducting a legal business, you want to legally, and you are authorized, you want to pay medical bill, you want to pay school fees, some little bills, you know it is legal, you know it is not illegal, you know it is not something that is meant to perpetrate graft and corruption, go to your bank. The bank will take your documentation and they will do your transfers for you. You don't need a bureau de change, given the fact that we are currently so disappointed and we cannot continue with the bad practices that is happening there. I had said so almost about 4 or 5 Mpc meetings ago that what happens in that market, as insignificant as the volume is all meant, they are all perpetrating grafts, they are all perpetrating corruption, exchange of bribe money. Instead of taking your naira in big bags, you choose to collect dollar cash in small bags. We will not facilitate that for you again. It is not what a bank, a central bank, should support. That is the reason we have taken this position today. All those social media messages going around are all fake and indeed are fraudulent, and the CBN is currently doing everything possible to trail those perpetrators who intend on creating problem to create banking system instability. We will, by God's grace, unravel who they are, and we will announce them, bring them to the public if we find them. But I want to say that, and I repeat, that the strategic health of the Nigerian banking industry remains very, very strong. For instance, at today's meeting, data was provided to Monetary Policy Committee members, and I will say we reviewed the financial soundness indicators of the Nigerian banking industry. For instance, capital adequacy ratio averages 15.5%. For the national banks, they are only meant to have just 10%. For the international banks, those operating with international licenses, they are supposed to operate at 15%. If we have an average of 15.5%, we believe that this capital adequacy, the Nigerian banking industry is well capitalized and can meet any shocks if they arise. 2, non-performing loans ratio today stands at 5.7%. Our prescribed maximum is 5%. Even at a time when there's global crisis, if we have 5.7 instead of 5, I think it's an indication of a sound banking system. 3, liquidity ratio for the banking industry today is 41.3%. What is expected is a minimum of 30%. If the banks have an average of 41.3%, we believe that is an indication of a sound banking or sound liquidity in the banking system. Total assets in the banking industry from the data that we saw today rose from 37.8 trillion naira in May 2019, 2 years ago, and today total assets of the banking industry is 53.6 trillion naira as of June 2021. Total deposits in the banking industry has increased from 22.83 trillion naira in May 2019 to 33.85 trillion naira in June 2021. Gross loans have grown from 15.4 trillion naira in June 2019 to 22.04 trillion naira in June 2021. Like I said earlier, non-performing loans ratios have dropped from as high as 11.17% in May 2019 to 5.7% in June 2021, against a maximum threshold of 5%. So where lies the issues on distress? I would like to appeal to members of the banking public to please go about and conduct their banking business in any banks of their choice. We are monitoring the banks, and where we find that there are some weaknesses in some banks, we will target the shareholders. And we have often told the shareholders and insiders that they don't own the banks alone. Our analysis shows that this, if you look at the balance sheets of an average 5-year-old bank, the size of the deposit in those banks is almost 10 times the shareholders or the paid up capital of those banks. So if you ask me who owns banks, I will say it is depositors that own the banks. It is not the shareholders. The shareholders just have what I can call fiduciary responsibility, which they must perform. But where we find them wanting, we will take them out so that the banks can survive and depositors don't lose their money. Digital currency is what central banks all over the world, they are providing as an alternative to the current money arrangement. What are we saying? You have some naira in your account and you choose to convert part of your naira into a digital wallet by way of a digital currency. We would support that. If, for instance, you have 10 million naira in your account, you go to your bank. So, of course, when this starts, CBN will move some of the balances of banks and CBN to those banks in digital currency. So you go to your bank, you have for 10 million naira, you say you want to move your 10 million naira, maybe 2 million out of your 10 into a digital currency. They will debit your account and move it to you into your wallet of 2 million naira digital currency, which you can spend across countries. Okay, so we think that this is a novel idea, and we are not the first. We know the PBOC in China has unveiled theirs, and many other central banks are at advanced stages of unveiling their own digital currency, and our own digital currency, which is tagged e-naira, will certainly come into operation by the special grace of the Almighty by October, and we are working very hard for this. So what is the objective? On payment system, we believe that transactions will be cheaper and more efficient, as there will be less hubs to complete. On digital economy, the Nigerian economy, just like the rest of the world, is going digital, and cash cannot play in that space. Therefore, e-naira, which will represent the digital equivalent of cash, will be used as the fiat currency to effect transactions. But of course, in the area of facilitating monetary policy transmission, we believe that the rise of private digital money, such as Facebook DM and others, will mean less visibility to the amount of money in the system, and hence an inability of monetary authorities to properly transmit monetary policy decisions. And of course, in terms of financial inclusion, we believe that with over 30% of bankable adults still outside the financial system, the ability to have offline payments through our e-naira initiative will bring most of them into the formal financial sector. How ready are we? The use of cash is declining everywhere in the world, just as in Nigeria. And with the advent of digital currency, digital commerce, which is booming in the country, more and more people are adopting the use of electronic money to facilitate digital commerce. So our own e-naira is a digital representation of cash, which means as a fiat currency, that it is a fiat currency that will just be as widely acceptable as the physical, or what you can call your analog naira. We recognize the need for wide stakeholder engagements and education to be able to create awareness for the use of e-naira as alternative to cash to further drive towards a cashless society. Now, on crypto, let me say that the Nigerian economy is big enough to accommodate choices Nigerians make with regard to how they want to transact their businesses. The e-naira is being introduced to complement existing types of monies and not to replace them. I would emphasize that cryptocurrencies are private monies which are not regulated by any regulatory authority. Therefore, using them is your own individual decision. If you decide to use them, it means you are taking your risk. If you make your money, we will wish you good luck. But if you lose your money, we would laugh at you. But for us at the CBN, we have passed the instructions and directives to the banks that they cannot use their banking and payment system infrastructure to allow crypto agents or crypto users to use them. So that policy still remains in place, and I am not sure we are about to change that policy. That will be my response on whether or not the position of the cryptocurrency. But by way of update, I must say that we have made advanced progress on our digital currency. We have already appointed BDCs Incorporation as our technical partner. They were selected out of 10 other solution providers based on their performance during a rigorous evaluation process on diverse criteria, including technology, ownership and control, implementation, timeline, efficiency, ease of adoption, support for AML, CFT, platform security, interoperability, and implementation experience. So we are pretty confident that BDCs Incorporation has all that is needed to qualify them to be our partner in this journey. And I'm very sure that we'll be making good progress. Yes, I made a commitment that during the third quarter of 2021 that Infraco will take off. And you are reminding me that this is July. In fact, we are entering August, which is the middle of the third quarter. Let me give you the update. And the update is that it takes a process for an infrastructure corporation that is meant to be raising about 14 trillion naira plus 1 trillion naira equity from the equity owners. It takes a process to set up such institution that must be established in line with world's best global practice. And it starts with appointing, in our case, the transaction advisor, KPMG, into appointment of asset managers, which we have just done. I expect that in the course of this week, we will advertise we'll place an advert on the appointment of the CEO and the Chief Investment Officer of the Infraco, and he has to be a world-class person who understands infrastructure, financing and infrastructure business, and a well-respected person. So we're not just going to take any person because we want to make sure that we get this right. If we get it right, then it will be easy for us to raise 15 trillion so that we can go for another phase. Let's not forget, Nigeria's infrastructural deficit is so wide that 15 trillion we consider to still be a drop. And that's why we must get the first right so that the world will welcome us when we go for a second, a third, and a fourth. Why should we have people who graduate from, you studied agriculture, agricultural science, agricultural economics, and yet we say that Nigeria has a lot of agricultural potentials, and you have a certificate, degree in agric economics, agric science, extension services, and yet you don't even know the basics of, you don't even own a farm. So we're trying to say that if you're a graduate of agriculture, for instance, we would like to work with universities to say that universities have vast land. We should work with them to support them to see how they can begin to say that before you graduate, you have to even do farming on one small parcel of land. Conduct research about the seedlings, conduct research about the type of fertilizer or other inputs that you can put in a small piece of land that will give you the highest possible yield and output. I repeat, this is a time. Don't forget, as a result of COVID, every country has closed up. We got to a point where people who could produce drugs held on to their drugs. People who could produce food held back their food. So between the time when I held that lecture and now, we had sent our development finance officers to all the universities. They met with the committee of vice chancellors at a meeting, and they have also gone to each of the universities to access the needs, based on which a framework to support the initiatives of the university. It's not about agriculture alone. I just talked about even pharmacy. Why should a pharmacy graduate come out and become just a drug dispenser and he cannot even produce common sanitizer? Yes. So what are you doing? We will seek to provide our youth entrepreneurship program for you. We don't mind if what we have to do is collaborate with university and NYSC and say, we will seize your certificate. We will seize your NYSC certificate and your degree certificate and keep it. And say, take money, go and do farming. Take money, go into pharmacy. Or take money, do research that will help our country, that will help you create job for yourself and create job for others. That is what we need. We are talking about developing the entrepreneurial skill in our people, in our young people. Let me go back. Agriculture today in Nigeria, I'm beating my chest and telling our youth, it is the most profitable business you can imagine today. There are people we give loans under our Prime Anchor program, give them about 10 billion. After we collected from them, we bought their produce, right? We collected their produce and repayment of their loans. And after that, we gave them extra, even in some cases, more than 10 billion to some of them as cash, which they went and they are enjoying themselves with. So why will you as a youth sit down and be looking for a job when your entrepreneurial skill can be developed? That is what we're saying. So that's what we're saying. We must bridge the gap between what you study in school and that when you graduate, you can practice because your entrepreneurial skills have been developed. That is what we're doing. The framework will be out. It is a program that we are very excited about, and we are hoping that our investors will embrace this for the good of our country. Let me explain it to you. When you say inflation or rate of inflation means that prices are going up. Only that in this case, the rate of increase is decelerating. The rate of increase is decelerating to a point we are praying and hoping how we can get to a point where we are not talking of inflation, we are talking about deflation. But we pray and hope, we have never seen that before, but at least we are making progress to say that the rate of increase in prices is reducing. And our data supports the fact that it is reducing. In fact, we are unhappy that the rate is slow. If you see inflation dropping from inflation rate dropping from 17.93 to 17.75, it's not a fantastic reduction, which means you are right that prices are still high. But we are all going to work together to see to it that it comes down very, very fast. You all recall, the truth is that as long as even the Monetary Policy Committee itself has identified the fact that through these intervention facilities, we have seen our own objective of price and monetary stability is being achieved, right? The Monetary Policy Committee has encouraged us, the management, that we should do more. So we are encouraged to do more. We will continue to do this. But what we do appeal to you is that when you take money, use it for good reasons and pay back. It is not national cake. It is not a grant. It is a loan which you must pay. And let me warn, if you think you took the money you will not pay, under some kind of funny arrangement, you will pay. We have your data. We know where you are. We will find you. So use it for good purpose. After using it, you pay back, you service the interest. Your profit, you can use it to go to the bar. You can use it to marry, but don't use the principal to go to the bar because you will pay. Thank you very much.